Hello, YouTube family. I wanted to do another episode on my YouTube channel. It's been a couple of days. This will be episode 4, and since we're in the early stages of 2021, I wanted to do a recap this weekend of week 1 of 2021. And I've got to say, I had high hopes for 2021. 2020 was a crap year. 2021, I had high hopes to see the end of the pandemic. We've got a vaccine. We should be able to start getting vaccines out and getting people immunized. As long as we reach a high enough number, we should be able to reach herd immunity with the vaccine. I wanted to, see an end to the Trump administration. Biden got elected last year in November, and although there's been a lot of garbage out of Trump over the election, Biden won. This is the year we get a new president, and hopefully we're able to get headed in the direction of something close to normal, as close to normal as we're going to get anytime soon. Unfortunately, week 1 of 2021 was kind of like 2020. It was a garbage week, and 2020 leaked into week 1 of 2021. Hopefully that's an anomaly, but here we go. Some news items from week 1 of 2021. Kyle Rittenhouse pled not guilty, which is no surprise. It was expected. To the charges against him. The charges against him are first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, attempted first-degree intentional homicide, along with lesser crimes of recklessly endangering safety, possession of a deadly weapon by a minor, and a curfew violation. Rittenhouse pled not guilty. His claim is self-defense. And Kyle Rittenhouse, if you remember, he is the Kenosha killer. He's the guy he's the kid. He was 17 years old. He's 18 now. But in 2020, during the Black Lives Matter protests, and the uproar over the police shootings. There was the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where he was shot in the back as he was attempting to open the door of his car. And there were protests, there was rioting going on, and Rittenhouse, who lives in Illinois, I believe it's Antioch, Illinois, and his claim is self-defense. So in Rittenhouse's mind, I guess in his lawyer's mind, self-defense is hopping in your vehicle, driving about 35 miles across a state line to a city you do not live in, to take possession of a firearm you illegally purchased through someone else, intending on possessing that firearm, which is illegal for your age in the state you're in, and then going out on the streets to play vigilante, to play militia boy. He's claiming that he was defending himself. My idea of self-defense is stay at home in Antioch, Illinois, where there's no civil unrest. That seems like a pretty good way to defend yourself. Rittenhouse and his friend claimed they were hired by the owner of a parking lot to protect the parking lot during the protests. Why you need to defend a parking lot, I don't know. A parking lot is a geometrically shaped piece of pavement. I mean, what are protesters going to do to a parking lot? Even if they burned something on the parking lot, they would just put a burn mark on a parking lot. The owner of the parking lot claims he hired no one to protect his parking lot. So that's all going to have to be hashed out in court. I believe they're scheduled to begin the court trials in March. Some of the legal experts believe that's not going to happen because of everything that's going on and the pandemic and everything. But Kyle Rittenhouse pled not guilty. Self-defense. Self-defense is driving to another state, taking possession of an illegal firearm and walking the streets with it. That's self-defense to him. The Senate runoff elections happened this past week on January 5th, Tuesday, January 5th. and the result was both Democrat candidates won. The Senate will now be technically controlled by the Democrats. The numbers are actually 50-50, but since Biden and Harris are going to go into the White House, Kamala Harris as a VP will be able to be the president of the Senate and will be able to break ties. So technically the Democrats will have a majority now in the House, the Senate, and they will have the presidency. So there's no excuse for legislation not getting passed. Trump and his sycophants helped the Dems win with the election, claiming the elections in Georgia were rigged. If you remember, Donald Trump has been on fire attacking both the Republican governor in Georgia, Kemp, and Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State. Trump, some of his sycophantic followers, have been going in Georgia talking about how the election was rigged, blaming Kemp and Raffensperger for allowing the election to be stolen, and all the garbage he's been saying about the stolen elections, which is all without merit, without evidence, and as 60 court cases have shown, there is no evidence, therefore the case has no merit, and that's why they've been kicked out of courts around 60 times. Surveys following the election showed that a great number of Republican voters stayed home and said they don't trust the integrity of the elections in Georgia. So the things Donald Trump was claiming certainly ended up having an impact on the election. And those are the candidates. Loeffler and Perdue were the Republicans' incumbents. Kelly Loeffler technically has never actually won an election. She was appointed to her position previously, and now she's lost this election. And Perdue, his election was very, very close. I assume there will be a recount there. I assume there's, barring no major malfunctions in the voting, it'll hold up, and Ossoff and Warnock will both be going to the Senate later, and the Georgia election, the voting looked like this. As you can tell, Georgia is still very much a red state. Where the bulk of the population is, however, is blue. All the red areas are much lower populated areas. The blue areas are obviously the more populated areas, as heavier populations tend to end up voting Democrat. And then we come to just after the Senate runoffs. We had January 6th. A joint session of Congress where Vice President Mike Pence was supposed to end up certifying the electoral votes. Mike Pence's job in that whole situation was only to unseal the ballots. The ballots are carried into the chamber they're in mahogany boxes. It's all primary ceremonial. Mike Pence really had no authority to do much there, and it's based off the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment was ratified in 1804, and it was ratified to shore up issues with the election of 1800. And you had Trump claiming voter fraud. You had a group of Trumpican senators and the representatives whose plan was to object to the certification. Now, as far as I was talking about the 12th Amendment and the whole ceremony that they do in the Senate, the objections really were not based on law, not based on the Constitution. The way it's worded is that if the states themselves have issues with the election results, they can pass that on to their representatives, who can then object during the certification. That's the whole point for the objection. The objection isn't to play politics. The objection ability isn't to try and suck up to the Trump cult fanatics, which is what they were doing. You have a group of Trumpican elected officials who have designs on running for president in the future. I mean, Ted Cruz, traitor to the United States now, he most likely will run in 2024 for the Trumpican nomination. Josh Hawley was highly expected to run in 2024 for the Trumpican nomination for the Trumpican party. And all they were doing was objecting to appeal to these sycophantic fans who are diehard. Don't get me wrong, they are very staunch supporters of Donald Trump. And you had the pundits on the right-wing news, places like OANN, Fox News, Newsmax, Breitbart, all following suit with this claim of voter fraud. No evidence, nothing valid about it, just playing up to these people, because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear that Trump actually won. The problem is, when you keep burying this notion in people's heads that they won, that you won, and the election was stolen from you, they believe it. And part of the problem is, with this whole plan to object to the certification, you had some of these right-wing pundits also claiming they can stop the election of Joe Biden. They can prevent it with these objections, which also got in people's heads that it's possible. You know, Mike Pence at one point leading up to this ceremony had made the comment, he has no power, he has no authority to overturn the election. Mike Pence is a Trumpican politician. He's the vice president for Donald Trump, and he has been a staunch defender and supporter of Trump throughout all the crazy, throughout all the insanity. He stood there by Trump, and Trump ended up turning on Pence and blaming Pence for not being willing to overturn the election. And the thing is, it's not a thing. Pence has no power to do that. Pence admitted he had no power to do that, and that made Trump mad, that made his followers mad. Trump ended up arranging a Stop the Steal rally in D.C. on January 6th during the joint session of Congress. Everyone knew, for at least days leading up to this, if not weeks, that all these Trump sycophants were descending on D.C. There were plans to rally there, and those folks don't come with flowers and sit around and sing Kumbaya. They come with guns, they come in tactical gear, they come with all kinds of weapons and all kinds of vile rhetoric. Despite all of this pre-notice, I mean, the Capitol Police had informed members of Congress to plan to stay on campus all day. Park in the parking garage, don't go outside, don't park anywhere that's publicly accessible, go to the parking garage, stay on campus all day. The D.C. mayor had advised residents to stay away from the area because of this rally. Despite all of this, the Capitol Police showed up with an inadequate force to contend with the crowd if they got violent, and they did. And the thing is, as we're coming to learn more and more, it was premeditated. They went there with violent intent. Some of them. I don't know if some went there just hoping to feel better about themselves. But there were a lot of people, some groups within the group, that went there with violent intent. At least 5 people have died from the incident. as the Trump followers stormed the Capitol. They broke through windows, doors, barricades, and in some cases, as we're starting to see on social media, Capitol Police moved barricades, opened doors, and seemed to usher the rioters through into the building. There was one video of a Capitol Police officer running up the stairs away from the rioters. They were completely outmatched, outnumbered. And the riot came together following this incident without any proof to put another false story together, and that is that Antifa was responsible for what happened on January 6th at the Capitol. For anyone who still has the capacity for reason, you know that's not true. These are Trump fans. Some of these people have been seen at Trump rallies before, or videoed at Trump rallies before. They are, in their own words, very much Trump fans, Trump supporters. And for the Retrumpicans, the Retrumpican voters, any excuse or deflection is a good one. So that's what they do. They immediately go to an excuse or a deflection to try and alleviate themselves of any responsibility. I mean, you've got pundits in the news, right-wing news media, who have at least partial responsibility for what happened. You have politicians who certainly have responsibility. Donald Trump was at the Stop the Steal rally, riling the crowd up before they attacked. So was members of his family. So was Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani made the comment that they're going to do trial by fire. I mean, that guy's a joke. I mean, he's a former attorney general, a former mayor, and he's a joke. He has gone way downhill through his life. As the dust settled from the events, as I said, things have come into clearer focus. We found there was one guy there with a bunch of guns, a bunch of bullets, and some homemade napalm. The homemade napalm was Molotov cocktails, a mixture of gasoline and styrofoam, intended that once you throw it and it explodes, it's going to end up being like napalm sticking to your body. That would have been horrible. But he had, I believe, 11 Molotov homemade napalm cocktails, multiple rifles, handguns, and a massive amount of ammunition. There were zip ties and a gallows. As we discovered, following all of that, some of the members of the group had the plan to assassinate Mike Pence for the reason I specified before, that he admitted he couldn't change the outcome. He had no power to change the outcome. But because people were putting it into their heads that he could, they believed he could, and when he said he couldn't, they took it as he wouldn't. There were multiple computers stolen from representatives in Senate offices. This is potential national security implications. Who knows what's on the computers? Who knows if there's top secret information on the computers? Who knows if somebody stole a computer is going to turn around and sell it to a foreign government for a lot of money? Even if there's nothing on it of any national security importance. I'm sure there are some countries around the world that see us as a threat who would be willing to pay a decent chunk of money just to see if there's anything worthwhile for them on it. Capitol Police allowed the rioters to leave once the National Guard came in to restore order. They didn't detain people. They didn't start handcuffing people. They had plenty of zip ties available. There were zip ties even in possession of the rioters. And they could have kept them all there on the grounds outside the building and just started processing them that day. Now there's this massive hunt by the FBI, U.S. Marshals, trying to hunt these people down, putting their pictures up because none of these people wanted to wear a mask. They're all anti-maskers, all Retrumpican nut jobs. And so, I mean, you had them posing for pictures. They're starting to be arrested. And the thing is, the charges against them are rather light. the guy who was photographed sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk, who wrote the note on the folder on her desk. I think the maximum penalty for the charges he's been charged with is 1 year in prison. That's the maximum. That's the worst he'll get, 1 year in prison. And it's very likely he'll serve no time at all. That is a disgrace. The Capitol Police refused help by the DOD. The DOD saw this coming. The DOD offered to send in National Guard soldiers to help in defense of the Capitol during this protest. And the Capitol Police said, we're good. They weren't. The Capitol Police Chief resigned in shame after this catastrophic failure. And the harm could have been so much worse. Just this one scenario. If Russia or China or Iran or any country that sees us as an enemy or a threat wanted to, they could have infiltrated one of these right-wing groups, gone to the rally, and it would have been as simple as taking some kind of airborne toxin into the building, releasing it, and walking out. To have done a massive amount of damage. To potentially have crippled one branch of our 3 branches of government. And that's something I've not heard many people talk about, is these right-wing fanatics, all they care about is that you look like them and think like them, you love Trump, you love racism and xenophobia and all this garbage. As long as you're following into their crowd, they welcome you. And it would have been so easy for a foreign government to infiltrate that rally and do much more harm than what was done. And the Capitol Police were not prepared. Our government was not prepared. And it shows a huge hole in our defense of our government. So we have to have accountability. The Capitol Police need to be held accountable. The police chief resigned. I don't know if there's much more that can be done with him. One of the Capitol Police officers died. He was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. He collapsed and later, I believe the next day on Thursday, died, which is tragic. You know, there was the Air Force female who was part of the rioters who got shot trying to climb through a broken window. There was another woman who supposedly got trampled. She was part of the rioters. She was part of the Retrumpicans that broke in, and supposedly she got trampled by the very crowd she was a part of. 5 people died. The House is moving to impeach Trump this coming week, which is mostly optics. There is certainly some seriousness to it because potentially Trump still has access to nuclear weapons of the United States. Trump's still technically the president, although people around the White House have said the government is basically not paying any attention to what Trump says. They will not follow any of his orders, and he's basically just holed up in the West Wing, still whining about losing the election and wanting it to change, blah, blah, blah. But the House is moving to impeach Trump. We're less than 2 weeks away from inaugurating Biden, so Trump was going to be out anyway. And along with the impeachment, you've got the rats literally and proverbially leaving the sinking ship. Members of Trump's cabinet have started resigning. Betsy DeVos, clearly our worst education secretary in my lifetime, absolutely worthless in that position, she resigned from her office, which means nothing. You know, she might be trying to save a little face in light of what happened on Wednesday, but she stayed with Trump through all of his horribleness the entire 4 years. And now, less than 2 weeks till the inauguration of Biden, she's gone. But the rats are definitely leaving the sinking ship. They're trying to find their next grift. Senator Hawley, Josh Hawley, one of the traitors to the United States in the Senate, who maintained his objection, his plan to object, and he objected during the certification after the riots, after everything was done, and the joint session reconvened, Hawley still objected to the certification of the votes. Ted Cruz was another senator who also objected to the certification of the votes. Both Cruz and Hawley were seen as Trumpicans that were planning on running for president, most likely in 2024. They were going to try and run for the Trumpican nomination for that party. And Hawley lost a book deal. Simon & Schuster had a book deal planned with Hawley, and they canceled it in light of the fact that he's a traitor. We had people trying to undermine our government, undermine our democracy. We had people trying to kill leaders in this country. And because of his grift and his desire to have those people like him and vote for him in a future Republican primary, he stayed with the plan. Hawley and Cruz also were, while the Capitol was under siege by these rioters, they had sent out fundraising emails based off the idea of stopping the stealing of the election. I mean, it's the grift of the right knows no bounds. It's absolutely insane. But Hawley whined about losing the book deal. It was a big deal to him. And his complaint was that Simon & Schuster were trying to be woke. I've got news for Hawley. Simon & Schuster, they're not trying to be woke. They're not going to be woke. There's no social justice, anything to it. Simon & Schuster is a company. Simon & Schuster is part of the free market. And you are toxic. Josh Hawley, senator and traitor to the United States, is toxic at this point. Simon & Schuster looked at what was happening and said, we don't think he's good for our brand. We don't want his name or his face associated with our brand. We're not going to go forward with the book deal because it's bad for business. That's free market, brother. That's what you claim to love, the free market of capitalism. That's Simon & Schuster, a company, saying, you're bad for our business. We believe. And that's their choice to cancel the book deal. To him, he just whines about it and cries about it because he's a right-winger. They whine, they cry, they self-victimize all the time. And this picture I want to bring up. This also was January 6th. The black woman you see there, in the bear hug of whatever white dude is behind her, her name's Belinda Nebo. I hope that I pronounced the last name right. She's 25 years old. This is Los Angeles. It just happens that there was a Stop the Steal rally outside of City Hall in LA on January 6th, at the same time the riots were going on in D.C. at the Capitol building. Unfortunately, Belinda Nebo happened to walk past this Stop the Steal rally and all these racist Trump supporters. She ended up being beaten, getting maced 3 times, and it's tragic. This is America in 2021. She was just walking past City Hall on the sidewalk. As she was walking past, they were shouting racial slurs at her. They were shouting, asking her who she voted for, and she told them to leave her alone. She ends up being beaten and maced 3 times, pepper sprayed 3 times. She couldn't see. She had so much pepper spray sprayed in her eyes she couldn't see. 2 women ended up coming and helping her out. The kicker, 20 feet away, LA police. Standing there, doing nothing, watching it happen. And I want everyone to understand that incident is the poster child for people who say defund the police. What do we need you for if you're not going to protect us? If you're only protecting white people, why are you needed? And I understand the police departments of this country have a very long racist history, and it's still going. For all the right wingers, I don't know that there are many that will watch my channel out of the 5 to 15 people who are going to watch this. I also want you to understand that you complain about people saying white privilege. You complain about people talking about institutional racism. And this is a very clear example of both. These right-wingers that were at their own Stop the Steal rally in LA, in front of the police, felt they had the privilege of attacking this woman, beating her and macing her, pepper spraying her on the street, in front of City Hall, in front of the cops. That is white privilege. When you believe you can do that and face no consequences. It is also an example of an institutional racism. When the police see that happening and do nothing. One of the women that helped Berlinda out said when they got her free from the Trump racist crowd, they went to the police and the police shoved them down to the ground. That was the police response, to shove the women escaping these guys down. That's disgusting. It's 2021. And that should be burned in people's brains. If you're a right-wing voter, I have no idea why you support that. It frustrates me to no end. I know I have relatives, I have friends that will vote right-wing. I don't know if it's if they're all like one-issue voters, gun control, abortion, I love Jesus, whatever the excuse is. This is disgusting. If you vote right-wing, this is your company. The guys doing this to this woman, that's who you're making company with. It's disgusting. And now the LAPD is asking for help identifying the guys that attacked her. You shouldn't need help identifying them. The police that were there should have done their job. And again, we need accountability. There is none. We don't have accountability in Washington, in local state politics. We don't have ability in the police forces. Why are people saying defund the police? Why do we need them? If that can happen on the street, on the sidewalk, in front of City Hall, in front of cops, why do we need cops? What are they going to do for us? And it's not that people are trying to do away with police. What they're talking about is taking away all of the billions of dollars of military gear and putting funding, taking some funding from police, putting it into other social resources to help people. Because there are areas of the government, and certainly people in the government, who want to help people, whose jobs, whose roles are to help people, and they want to do it. The police, they're not doing it. Not enough. Some of these right-wing folks have said they're willing to go to war over their perceived slight in the election. There's future events planned. If Biden was to hold a in-person inauguration, there will be one of these events. I don't know if he does a virtual one, if they will still show up in D.C. again like this. But people have to be prepared. There are these right-wing nuts all over the country, like the whole issue with Berlinda Nebo in California. That happened at the same time they were attacking the Capitol. She got attacked on the street. What did she do wrong? She was being black in front of Trump supporters. That was the only thing she was. Just a woman walking down the sidewalk, trying to mind her own business. And when they started bugging her, telling them to mind their own business, she didn't tell them, you can't support Trump. You're stupid for supporting Trump. You're stupid for being right-wing. You're stupid for walking around with damn Confederate flags. I would say that. But she didn't. She tried to go about her way and got attacked. But we have to have a lot more security going on for future events. And whoever is going to take responsibility for securing areas in Washington, we also need that. Finally, the COVID vaccines are still rolling out. There are plenty of experts saying the rollout is way too slow. There are way too few people vaccinated. And right now, the easy people are being vaccinated. Right now, they're vaccinating people in nursing homes. They're vaccinating healthcare professionals. As one doctor said, the healthcare professionals are easy to vaccinate. You tell them you all come together in a group, we're going to vaccinate you. They'll show up, they'll get vaccinated. Right now it's the easy part. Because after this, we've got to vaccinate the rest of the country. And there's a percentage of the country that are going to be opposed to the vaccine. They're the anti-vaxxers in the country. We have to figure out a way to try and convince them, or at least a decent percentage of them, to get vaccinated. It's going to get tougher. Right now is the easy part, and we're failing at that. I don't know what Biden's putting in place. Unfortunately, he may go into office on the 20th with no cabinet positions confirmed. With no cabinet positions in place because the Senate's not doing their job. They've not been doing their job. I don't know when the two new senators from Georgia are going to end up showing up and being officially part of the Senate, which will give the Democrats control. At that point, the Democrats can get the cabinet confirmed. They can start helping Biden get things in place. Hopefully, the pandemic team he has a plan for the vaccine. Right now, it's being rolled out way too slow. Way too few people have been vaccinated. And we're in the easy part. As doctors and experts are saying, we're in the easy part. The people who are willing to get the vaccine, who are eager to get the vaccine. There's a percentage of the country who also will be eager to get the vaccine, but there's a percentage of the country who are going to be opposed to it. Sometimes because they're anti-vaxxers, sometimes because they're just right-wingers and they just want to be assholes and say, yeah, I don't want to get vaccinated. That's going to happen too. Just like they don't want to wear a mask, they don't want to get vaccinated, they don't want to help protect America. That's the right wing. Unfortunately. And they're not changing. They're not going anywhere. Trump's going to leave office. Biden's going to come in. But the people that attacked the Capitol, the people that attacked Berlinda and LA, they're still going to be here. They're still going to vote. They're still going to own firearms. They're still going to be dangerous. But that was week 1 in 2021. And I'm sure, like you, I hope it gets better. I hope our elected officials start taking a clearer look at what the problems are and ways to at least negate them. You're not going to get rid of the right wing. You're not going to get rid of the crazies. You're not going to get rid of the guns. You're not going to get rid of the danger. But hopefully they can mitigate it as much as possible. Thanks for watching. If you like the videos, please like, please subscribe, and have a good week.